Hey there, welcome to Chet. So running is the new golf, they say. So those of you thinking you want to improve your performance, probably hitting a plateau, you think you know all about weight, form, training and pacing and wondering, what is it that I can find out today that can really help me break that timing barrier? So for you, we've got an expert coach and blog writer who's been running for over 10 years across the globe in several marathons and has trained the entire spectrum of runners from beginners to Boston qualifiers to comrades. So let me quickly get on to Sandeep Bhandarkar. Hey Sandeep, welcome to the show.
Thanks Chetna, thanks for inviting me to your very popular show.
Oh, thank you so much for being here because I know marathon's around the corner and people are really sitting on YouTube saying, how do I improve my timing? So with all your experience at running and coaching, tell me, what are those key things you find that really make that difference?
Okay. You know, there are a lot of things you can do,
right?
But I've got something like about 8 points, which I always keep in mind when I train people.
Okay, so I'm sure those are going to be really special 8 points. So what's the first one?
The first one is the most obvious one, that's the weight.
Okay.
I think everyone knows that running is all about fighting gravity.
Right.
So with every step you take, you're actually jumping up in the air.
Okay.
The interesting part is that when you land, you actually land with 2 to 3 times the impact of your body weight. So if you're a 60 kg runner, every step you take, you will be landing, the impact on the ground will be about 150 kg. And let's now extrapolate this to a half marathon.
Okay.
In a half marathon, you take 21,000 steps.
Right.
So every kg in your body is actually impacting your joints cumulatively by about 50,000 kgs by the end of a half marathon. That's 50 tons of cumulative impact. The 3 joints which really bear that load are the ankles, the knees and the hips. First thing I do when I take on a runner to train is I assess the weight of the runner. I first work out the height of a runner. From the height of the runner, I subtract 100.
When you say height, as in centimeters?
In centimeters, that's right. And I then subtract 100 for a male runner, 105 for a female runner. And that I put it as a normal weight for a sedentary person. What you need to do is you need to actually come 5 to 10% further down from that number. Let's take a woman runner who's say 5'3" or 5'4", so approximately 163 or so is her height. So if you take out 105 from there, it comes to about 58. And you further need to reduce it. So it's a sub 55 kg number which a woman runner would need to aim for if she wants to have a long, fairly injury-free running career.
Okay, and this is ideally before you really get into serious running, the earlier you have this...
Ideally, yes.
So tell me, there's always this thing about quick tips. So is there anything there in your diet that you swapped one thing for another and you found miracles happening? Is there something like that?
No, very valid point. There are 2 or 3 things which I feel can be useful to keep in mind. The first is what I call a 12-hour fasting cycle.
Okay, so 8 to 8 kind of
8 to 8, yes. If you keep that in mind, 8 to 8, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. is when you can eat, and 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. is when you should not be eating ideally. So when you eat, and typically very few of us can resist eating carbohydrates, there is an insulin spike in the body, which takes about a couple of hours to die down. So fat burning doesn't happen when insulin gets into the blood. So let's say you have a meal at 8 o'clock at night. It's 10:30 onwards when there is a scope for fat burning when you're sleeping.
Right.
So the more time you give to your body, the better the chances of you burning fat. And hence losing weight. So that's one.
Right.
The second is really about experimenting with your foods. I always encourage runners to just put in a week's log. It can be a simple Excel file. You can just put in what you have eaten. And just that has opened the eyes of so many runners because you don't realize. Yes. So I knocked off milk and chapatis from my diet, replaced that with brown rice and curds. And I got, I think in a couple of weeks or 2 to 3 weeks, I got a 3 kg loss.
Wow. Okay, so we hit the weighing scales and let's quickly ask him what the second point was.
The second point actually is something which is today closest to my heart, which is really the running form.
Okay.
I've run about 10 years now. The first 5-6 years were really a struggle. I used to fade a lot in marathons. I would get injured frequently. A lot of friends would, jokingly ask me when my next injury is due. So that was very frustrating. And then I started looking at the aspect of form more closely. And it's actually been a revelation.
Oh, really?
It's been a revelation, and one key point in that is what I would like to share with you is the concept of cadence.
Okay.
Cadence is really the number of steps you take per minute.
Okay.
It's or what's called a stride rate.
Right.
The way they measure performance is really the concept of pace. Let me talk about that first.
Okay.
Pace is really the inverse of speed.
Okay.
Speed you measure in kilometers per hour, miles per hour.
Yeah.
Pace is in minutes per kilometer or minutes per mile. It's actually the flip of it.
In this much time, how much distance are you covering?
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's linear with time,
Right.
which is why it's much easier to track.
Right.
So the runners use pace.
Okay.
Now pace can be as a product of two variables.
Right.
You have the stride rate, which I talked about, the cadence, and the stride length. Okay, which is the distance you take for every step.
Sure.
If you come to cadence, actually the concept is very simple. If this is your lower leg, you have, so from the knee to the ankle is what's the lower leg.
Right.
When your foot hits the ground,
Right.
ideally this part should be vertical.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
For most of us recreational runners, it's
We land
actually
on the heel.
in front of the knee.
Right.
The foot is in front of the knee.
Right.
It makes an angle with the vertical.
Right.
This angle is actually called the overstride angle.
Okay.
And if you have a positive overstride angle,
I.e. the foot is ahead of the knee.
the foot is ahead of the knee, it actually causes two things. One is it causes braking with every step.
Okay.
Okay, and that really impairs performance because you have to start all over again. You're braking, starting again, braking, starting again. So it's a
Okay.
very, very choppy way to run.
Right.
Yeah?
Okay.
And the second is that because it's at an angle, our bones are longitudinal in nature. They are able to withstand stress along the axis.
Right.
Our skeletal
Sure.
bones.
Yeah. You can push,
Now,
yeah.
if it's vertical, the stress comes straight through the bone.
Right.
The bone is able to handle it.
Sure.
If the bone is at an angle, there is a shear stress
Right.
across, and the
Yes.
bones the skeletal bones are not designed to handle
Oh,
shear.
that's why the shin bone injuries.
Injuries, the stress
Okay.
fractures, etc.
Okay.
So even if you can punch somebody like this,
Right.
but if somebody chops you here, you will get a fracture immediately.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do they know? What is the stride rate, like you mentioned?
Yes.
is Optimal.
There's a number which actually a lot of runners know about. The number 180 is what's considered to be a minimum cadence for good form.
Okay. So what is 180?
180 is really the number of steps per minute
Okay. So
which
you're
you should take.
So you're saying minimum, which means ideally the shorter steps I take is in general better than taking a longer stride.
In general, there's a point at which then the stride becomes too choppy because the other variable, the stride length, becomes too short.
Oh, okay.
So every runner has to find a happy balance.
Right.
But I encourage runners to really push for that 180 number
Okay.
because two things happen. As I said, 180 reduces the braking forces. The second is an interesting concept called the muscle shortening reflex. Okay, when you land, the muscles actually shorten on impact because of the force production. If you take a long time to come off the ground again, the springiness of the muscle of going back to its original shape is actually the speed is lost.
Okay.
And because the speed is lost, you have actually lost a valuable reflex action of the runners, of the muscles.
Okay.
And because of that, the energy which is generated by that reflex is lost out.
Okay.
So research has shown that cadence of 180 plus gives you that energy, which we actually term as free energy,
Right.
to push you forward.
So 3 steps a second.
3 steps a second.
How do they measure that?
Again, a very interesting point. Today, a lot of the watches, your mobile phones have what's called a metronome.
Right, the one you use for musical instruments.
Exactly. So that beat is very important for you to start really practicing how to go forward. So you have the mobiles which have got metronomes, you have wearables including the running watches which have now got metronomes.
Okay.
There are also very interesting small metronomes with clip-ons to the shorts which can also be used for by the runners.
Okay.
My personal experience has been that I was at about 172 and I've moved to about 184 to 186.
Wow.
That took me about 3 months to do.
Okay.
So that's what I say about form. It's really an investment. Training is use it or lose it. If you're not training, your body loses fitness, but that doesn't happen with form. Once you get your form right, you're not going to lose that form.
Yeah. So we figured out our weight, we figured out the form. Now, do we get into training?
Yes, that's actually the big daddy, and that's what a lot of runners fret about, right? In training, what I've seen very interestingly is that there is a spectrum of runs which you have to do during the training cycle.
Correct.
A large part of that actually should be done at an easy pace.
Oh, okay.
And that's a very confusing concept because when a recreational runner runs, they always try to look at comparing their pace for that run with the pace which they are going to run in the actual race.
Right.
That comparison is dangerous because the different paces are giving you different benefits. So one of the key benefits or the fitness improvements you need to do in distance running is to build your endurance. Right? For building your endurance, you don't need to run fast. You have to actually, the easier you run, the better it is for you because the longer you can run. So it's extremely important to really realize what you're training for that run. The top coaches actually say that you should actually run about 80% of your runs at what I call an easy pace. Now the easy pace is something again which is confusing because a lot of runners say that no, I'm running at easy pace. I'm chatting with friends. It's all coming nice. I'm not breathing hard, but that may still be too hard for a runner. So there are calculators available on the net which help you understand what your easy pace is, and sticking to those easy paces actually provide a lot of benefit to the runners. You can run more during the week because you're running a lot of it easy, and that then has a cascading impact. Your endurance really will shoot up after a few months.
Okay, so is there any calculator that you recommend?
There are two which are very popular. One is called the Jack Daniels calculator and the other is called the Macmillan running calculator. Both of them are good. I have again a quick back of the envelope calculation which I do. The easy runs for me are at a pace which is slower than 40 seconds of your target marathon pace, or about a minute slower than your target half marathon pace.
So Sandeep, you mentioned taking easy runs through the week, and I find a lot of runners, because they're busy with their work schedule, etc., pile up all the runs over the weekend. So how does this marry the easy run through the week and the weekend pressure?
So Cheta, you hit upon a very valid point for all us recreational runners, because we lead busy lives, and I've seen that many runners do more than 50% of their weekly mileage on a Sunday. So that's not good for the body, and it's not a good training principle also. So the coaches, what they do for advanced runners, elite runners, is really don't recommend more than 30% of your mileage should come from the Sunday long run. Yes, and that can be done with easy runs. Okay, so you're getting great benefit. You're spreading your miles through the week, and essentially then allowing your body to have enough time to recover, so that then you can put in a lot of weekly mileage, over the course of the whole training schedule, which for a marathon specific training schedule is about 16 to 18 weeks. So you got to last the distance.
Okay, so you advise break it up 30% there, 70% over 5 days. Do you think they should take a full day of rest?
I would say, it depends upon the race. If you're training for a marathon, I would say 5 days running is a sweet spot. That will actually give a lot of benefits. But if you're training for a half marathon, 4 days is good.
So we we've done 2 good points on training. What's the next one?
Actually, this is really about whether you know that you're ready for a race or no in terms of timing. There is one very interesting run which is actually a long run which you can do maybe 3 to 4 weeks before the race, and it's called a fast finish long run.
Okay.
In a marathon, you run 32 kilometers on a Sunday about 3 to 4 weeks out before the race.
Right.
Break that 32 kilometers into 2 parts.
Okay. Right.
The first 16 should be done at an easy pace.
Okay.
And the second 16 should be done at what you want as your target race pace.
Okay.
Okay? Because marathon, as we all know, is about the last 10 kilometers of the race. This is the great way to see that on tired legs they can run at their race pace. That's for the marathon. Okay. For the half marathon, you can have a similar concept, but you do, this is a 50-50.
Right.
There, a 50-50 is too heavy because the paces are faster. You do a 2/3, 1/3.
Okay, so 2/3 easy.
2/3 easy and 1/3 fast. So I would say about 14-7. So fast finish long runs is a great way to check whether you're on the right track or no. It also is an extremely good training tool. It is used very frequently by the elite runners because if you are running say 30 kilometers as a run, you can do it in a variety of ways. You can just do 30 kilometers at an easy pace, but in some of the runs you should just insert this race pace towards the end. It can be as less as 2 or 3 kilometers and it can go as high as 16 kilometers.
So Sandeep, we run through the week, and what else would the runner need to do to really get that extra timing off?
So strength training in general is a very important piece to maintain fitness.
Right.
You know, everyone knows that.
Right.
That's not up for debate at all. The question is, what strength training should runners do to help them improve? So what is most important to keep in mind when you're looking at strength training for runners is to look at focusing on exercises on a single leg.
Okay.
Okay, because in running, you're not using both feet at the same
Together,
time.
right.
So you're using one foot at any time. And what happens with 2 legs is that one leg tends to dominate or hide the deficiencies of the other leg. You wouldn't know unless and until you isolated it on a single leg.
Okay.
So exercises which you normally would do using both legs, it is useful to do them on single legs. I'll give you an example. You have the overhead press, which is there, which is actually an upper body exercise.
Yeah.
But you can actually do the same exercise by reducing the weight a little bit, but doing it on a single leg.
Oh.
Okay, so not only, your balance is worked on as well as you get some strength on the upper body.
Okay.
Another example which I'm fond of giving is your plank. So everyone knows what a plank is.
Yeah, we all do it on 2.
2. So, but then what you should really be looking at is that remove one hand and remove one leg, and look at a single hand, single leg plank. Okay, these are advanced exercises. They should not be taken up immediately.
Sure.
You should actually be looking at doing the base ones first, and then moving to single leg.
Coming to nutrition, we did speak about it earlier while losing weight. So let's assume now the runner has his ideal body weight. But during training, are there still some aspects of nutrition that are relevant?
Recovery is a major area which runners actually don't focus on, the recreational runners, because of our busy schedules during the day. Do you know that the elites train for about maybe 4 hours in the day, and the balance 24 hours are spent in recovery? So massage, ice baths, sleep, that's how they can do that kind of mileage. We can't afford to really look at that kind of recovery process. So what are the smart things we can do? One of the key elements of recovery is really nutrition, which is what I call an invisible recovery. And the most crucial intake in the day, according to me, is within 30 to 45 minutes of a workout. Because what happens is that in the workout, your muscles are getting used, the nutrients are getting used, so the muscles are all ready to absorb whatever is thrown at them. And if you take in at that point of time, the absorption capability of the muscles is far higher than even 1 hour after the workout.
Oh, really?
Yes, and a good mix of carbohydrates and proteins with good vitamins and minerals is a great combo to have.
Okay, so
a simple smoothie, which you can have by throwing in a banana or some strawberries and some nuts.
Yeah. Super. Now we are on the day of the race. So do they need to keep something in mind as they pace themselves out?
Actually, you hear zillions of stories of runners blowing their race because of what's called poor pacing. They would have trained great, everything would have gone right, but they wouldn't have achieved their target. So the key point here is about how you start. Let's take a marathon.
Okay.
The first 3 to 4 kilometers is a very crucial period. You have to hold yourself back because you're freshest at that point of time. You would have recovered very well over the previous 1 or 2 weeks,
right.
And you're ready to go. Adrenaline is flowing. There are many runners who start too fast at that point. So what good coaches say is that the first half of the race run with your watch and the second half of the race run with your heart.
Okay.
Because don't bust what the paces have been prescribed to you in the beginning of the race.
Right.
In the second half of the race, it's all about how you can push yourself because it gets very mental then.
Okay. Okay, tell me one more thing, Sandeep. This is an area where I personally struggle, is breathing. I don't know, I just seem to be out of breath very early. So is there some strategy there?
Actually, there are 2 buckets. One is during the easy runs, you don't have to focus too much on breathing because by definition, you should be able to talk when you're running. But in the harder runs, it is useful to sync your breathing with the steps you're taking. The most popular breathing pattern is really 2 in and 2 out. There are multiple combinations. Some prefer 3 in, 2 out. And when you go faster, when you're really running hard, it can come down to 2 in, 1 out, 1 in, 1 out when you're really pushing the limit.
Okay. So Sandeep, we've got some excellent 8 points from you on the technical side of running and the
I hope it helps.
But tell me, you train a number of people. Do they all kind of follow the rule, or do you find some who have a mind of their own and don't do what you're asking them to do?
Yeah. There are some who I just love. I just give them a plan and they stick to that to a T.
Okay.
But there are some runners who, I definitely kind of, take in some deep breaths after they have finished their workouts. Because they feel that if they have busted the paces given, they feel they've done a good job, they're very happy about it.
Thank you so much, and your blog is fantastic. I hope one day you write a book as well.
A lot of people have told me about my blog, but the comment I hear at the end is that, sorry, I don't think I've finished reading it because it was too technical. So it's almost like a tongue-in-cheek compliment.
But if you want some technical, really good information, you know where to come to. But thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure, and it's really been great.
Yeah, and wish you luck for the races coming up.
Thank you.
Please click the subscribe button below. Like me at facebook.com/ChetChat101. Follow my Twitter handle, ChetChat101, or at Instagram, ChetChat101. Please leave your comments in the sections below. And if you'd like me to feature any particular college, please let me know. Thank you.